Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So sorry I did not get my video up yesterday. It has been a week, as I'm sure you could tell by the title of this video. So I figured I would use this as just an opportunity for us all, including myself, to take a warm, very friendly laugh at what happened internally to me last week. And then also I wanted to take an extra day or two just to kind of think about what happened last week, what led up to me just literally melting down, and also what I learned in the process. Okay, so last time I left you guys, I had said that my husband was literally in the process of calling the railroad in Wyoming and formally accepting the offer, which he did. The paperwork is now in process, so he has a start date TBD. Now, in the meantime, like after he made that call, is when my unraveling started. And it started with my ear. I mentioned before, after we got back from Arizona, I came down with some crazy sinus whatever. And part of that, pretty much from the get-go, was some fluid buildup in my left ear, which obviously was causing some itching, pain, some numbness around the ear. It feels gross when you've got fluid in there, right? Like, it's not a pleasant feeling at all. Eventually I went to urgent care, $150 just to walk in the door, because remember, we don't have health benefits right now because my husband's in between jobs. So I pay $150 to be seen by this doctor who kept me in her office for all of 5 minutes, gave me a quick exam and said, I have no idea what's wrong with you. She did give me some antibiotics, recommended that I use some Flonase and also some, Sudafed or Mucinex to help drain my sinuses. 10 days later, my symptoms had improved in terms of the sinus drainage, but I was still having difficulty with my left ear. My options at that point were, okay, either go back to urgent care for a 5-minute exam for another $150. I called our PCP, whom I love and adore, and was told that just to walk in the door and say hello is between $250 and $500 out of pocket. I then called our ear, nose, and throat specialist in town, and was told by them that it is $337 just to walk in the door and say hello. Now, because my husband is in between jobs, as I mentioned, we do not have healthcare benefits right now. We also do not qualify for any type of assistance because with my job and his unemployment, we're making too much money to qualify for anything. So it's like, these are the options right now, which was driving me crazy. So leading up to the whole ear thing and the dilemma over what to do, we had a 2-week run of the most expensive, unexpected expenses we have ever experienced. I mean, when I say we got clobbered, we were kidding, clobbered. It was unreal. And because we had all these unexpected expenses, it required us to pull money out of our savings, which I get squirrely about in the best of conditions. So you can imagine how squirrelier I'm getting under these circumstances. Further exacerbating those two things is the fact that my PMS symptoms decide they're going to show up and say hello in all of their glory. So I mentioned before, at this point in my life, I'm definitely premenopausal, and to be honest, I've had a relatively easy time with it. However, there are certain months where my PMS really is on overload, to say the least. And what I mean by that is I just get super sensitive. I get very weepy, and I would say I get a little bit depressed around that time as well. I've also started to notice I start to get internally very judgmental and critical of everyone and everything around me. Thank God I don't verbalize it, but it is definitely something that just is brewing in my little head. And as part of that, I have a tendency to make mountains out of molehills. So now you have me not feeling well with my ear, right? We're getting clobbered by unexpected expenses. I'm now having PMS symptoms. And my husband, whom I love and adore, the man is my best friend. He is the best match for me that God ever could have come up with. But he is a man's man through and through. His patience with irrational female emotion is probably at about like 0.2%. On a scale of like 1 to 100. So as my husband's seeing me get very visually upset about the whole idea of spending more money on a doctor to look at my ear and potentially not have it cured, his help in that situation was to start talking to me very reasonably and logically about the state of our healthcare in this country and why things are the way they are. And I'm just listening to him, and I'm, again, I'm not flipping out on him. I'm not getting belligerent or yelling at him, but internally I'm thinking, Lord, you have to either get me out of the house, get him out of the house, quiet him, something, because I can feel like at some point I'm just gonna like I was not confident of how much longer I was going to be able to just sit there and not like start to combust. The other charming thing that was happening was I was experiencing some sleep issues. For the past 20 years, I just have not slept well. I've had tests run. They've done everything they possibly know to do. I just don't sleep well consistently. And so I had this run during all of this that was happening of not getting good sleep at all over the course of 3 nights. I probably got at best 6 hours of sleep. So now I am sick. I'm emotional. I'm irrational. I'm sleep deprived. This is now, as you can imagine, an open door for every single negative thought, negative emotion, anxiety, worry, fear, anger, sadness, confusion, despair, discouragement. It is all just like coming at me fast and furious. This is also being combined with feelings of self-pity, self-doubt, again, being super hyper-critical and judgmental of not only everyone and everything around me, again, keeping it internal, but then I also started really coming hard on myself and being extremely self-critical, self-judgmental, and just kind of spiraling in this negative whirlwind into a very, very dark place. So again, I'm telling you all of this in the spirit of authenticity, which is what I said I wanted to do at the beginning of this blog series, and I've mentioned before, like, oh, I think it's really important as a wife, in times of crisis to stay steady for your husband. Like, this is the time for your faith to really show through. And I've been good, to my credit, but this was definitely not one of my better moments. And the other thing that was really starting to bother me was how mentally and emotionally sick and heavy I was feeling. I mean, what happens when you allow yourself to marinate in negativity? It just starts to fester. For me, it's something very visceral because 99.9% of the time, I am happy, I'm hopeful, I have a positive outlook, I'm cheerful. And so when I experience such a drastic change in my personality and my ability to process tough things, it's scary. It just feels very much like a weight on my shoulders. Like I said, very heavy. It feels very oppressive. And you start to believe that it's never going to end, right? Which is really where depression is rooted. You just get caught up in this voice and, just feeling like things are never going to happen. This is it. It's never going to get better. It's only going to get worse. And normally when I'm better equipped, I've gotten to the point now with the help of God that I can really fight through that and get to the other side. I was unable to do that because I think at the root of everything, upon reflection, I was really, really, really angry at God, probably for the first time in my life. And I was angry because, it was like, I prayed the minute, honestly, the minute I heard my husband lost his job, the two things I prayed for right off the bat were keep us in good health, because I knew we weren't going to have health insurance benefits. And also, keep a hedge of protection over our finances. Please, thwart any attempts, any attacks on our finances. And then this is exactly what started happening. I was also getting very angry because I would pray please, Lord, let me sleep. Please put me in a deep sleep. I need sleep, not only to heal physically, but also heal mentally, emotionally. And I just was not sleeping, and it's just one of those instances where you question, why are you not answering this prayer? It's the simplest of things. At the very least, let me sleep, give me a good night of rest. And it just wasn't happening. And I was, as I said, just getting really frustrated, aggravated, and angry with God. And then the coup de grace to all of this was one day last week, I was just getting ready, looking in the mirror, putting an outfit together, and I heard, it was almost an audible voice say, and you know what? You're fat, you're ugly, and you look old. And it was just oh my gosh, what? So that was just the cherry on top of what was turning out to be a spectacular week of internal melting down. So in the midst of this, as I said, just tsunami of self-pity and negativity, I made the decision to just cough up the $337 and go to the ear, nose, and throat doctor, because I figured at this point, I need a specialist. This isn't normal for 3 weeks to be, having trouble with my ear. So I made a tearful call to them, explained the situation. I actually apologized to the receptionist because I said, I'm sorry if I'm being surly with you, but I'm so frustrated. I'm not feeling good. I feel like nobody will help me. And I'm not getting the care and attention that I need. To her credit, when I checked in at the office, she had put a 20% discount on that office visit, which brought it to the mid 200s, which I so appreciated. The doctor they had me meet with was fantastic. He took so much time with me. I was having a eustachian tube dysfunction. Basically, that just means that the tubes in my ears had gotten clogged and they weren't draining properly. And he's like, it happens mostly in kids. We do see it in adults. Time is going to help you heal. It's just a matter of time right now. Could be healed tomorrow, could take a couple weeks. But he did give me some steroids, a low dose steroid, to help take the edge off of those symptoms, the itchiness, the pressure, the numbness, that feeling just there's liquid in there sloshing around, the clicking whenever I chewed. And thank God those steroids were only $10 out of pocket at Walmart, which I was so thankful for. Immediately when I started taking those steroids, I felt relief, which was just, oh my gosh, I could feel just getting that little bit of relief was giving me so much hope. But the real catalyst for what pulled me or started pulling me out of my funk was, as I was waiting to get my prescription, I was actually answering comments you all had left on my last video. And one of you mentioned that your partner had recently been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And that's the moment where it was my eyes opened to the problems that I was having. And on the scale of things in life, how silly and inconsequential they were. And I'm saying that not to be dismissive or to insinuate that, when life gets lifey and it bumps into your happy, that you don't have, and I don't have every right to feel, discouragement, sadness, anger, resentment, you name it, we do. But it was just this moment that I think that God touched my heart and my mind and was in a very joking way, very warmly, teasingly, almost oh, poor you, your ear hurts. Oh, poor you, you had to pull money out of your savings account. And I kind of laughed out loud because it was like exactly the ribbing I needed from the Lord to just snap me out of my funk. I mentioned before that this devotional by Lisa Turkhurst called Embraced has been like speaking to my heart and my mind. And it was really interesting because for the next 3 days, I felt as though God had inspired her to write those devotions specifically for me and my situation and how I was feeling. So the first devotion that helped me get out of my funk was entitled The Beginnings of a Miracle. And in it, she just simply says, somewhere along the way, I stopped expecting God to work miracles in my life. That hit me because it was like, okay, this is knowing God's promises versus believing them. And, I realized I stopped believing them because things weren't going my way and he wasn't answering my prayers in the way that I thought he should, and so what I started doing was just right there in that moment, mentally listing all the things I had to be grateful for, all the blessings that I had just that day from like the smallest, tiniest thing I could think of. And the more I thought about the blessings, the better I started to feel. And then the other devotion that I came to was, I think it was the very next day. Yeah, it was. And it was entitled, Is My Pain Talking? And in this one, she says, sometimes something little can feel really big. And once you get into that negative space, that's when you just start getting barraged and attacked with all those negative voices, right? Like what I was hearing. I was assigning things to events so that in my mind I was hearing, oh, you don't have health benefits now because you're a loser, because you're poor. You're unloved, you're unvalued, you're insignificant because God isn't answering your prayers. And so that was just like exacerbating all that nastiness that was going on inside of my mind and my heart. And then the third devotion that really pulled me out of it was entitled The Root of My Rot. And she said, sometimes when you can't be soothed or soothe yourself and your soul by quoting scripture, rebuking negative thoughts, trying to boss your feelings, there's a reason for that. And the reason is because God wants you to be aware of your rot so you can address it and he can help get you through it. And I loved that. Like, oh my gosh, that's why I feel like God wasn't answering my prayers, why I felt like he was ignoring me, why he wasn't lifting that rot from me. It's because he wanted me to get to the root of it. And the other thing she said, which I thought was just so compelling, was how you react is a crucial gauge of what's really going on inside of you. So for me, what was going on inside of me? A lot of ingratitude, if I'm being honest, like poor me that these things are happening. Poor me. Definitely ingratitude. And I think more than anything, as I mentioned before, just a really angry, irrational rage almost at God for allowing these things to happen, for not answering my prayers, for letting things to linger. It was really, I don't want to be overly dramatic, but I just felt myself like for the first time ever, almost questioning my faith. And like, I would start to question it. And then I just try to like, no, move beyond it. Like, I don't want to park here because that's such a slippery slope. Like, I know better. I know better than to meditate on those thoughts. But then it would just like creep back in there. Like, well, maybe God just isn't as good as you. What if he isn't as good as you think he is? Or what if he's not going to heal you? What if your ear's always this way? What if you drain your savings? So to combat those feelings of ingratitude and anger, I just started as small as I could to try to reboot my thinking. So for example, like, why do I have this lingering ear issue? I changed that to, thank God, that's all it is, an ear issue. Why do we have to keep pulling money out of savings? I changed that to, thank God that he blessed us with the ability to save previously because now we can use that as a safety net when we start to get clobbered by unexpected expenses and we don't have to go into credit card debt. The other thing I did was the same thing I wish my husband would do, is to get into the ring with God and duke it out. And that's what I did. That night when I couldn't sleep again, I just duked it out with him. And I just kind of laid it all out and was honest about why I was angry, what I was angry about, why I felt disappointed in him, why I felt like he let us down, why I was upset that he seemed to just be silent. Like, where did you go? Like, this is when I need you the most, and you've never been more silent. But then I also apologized to God and said, I'm sorry I feel this way. And I felt like a spiritual weakling, like so spiritually immature that I had just allowed my faith to be so shaken, so fast. Like, it just felt like it was happening so fast in the span of this week-long period of disappointing events. And I felt bad about that. I felt bad about being angry. And so I just talked it out with God. I will say that I have at this point a very comfortable relationship with him, that I can be honest with him, because it dawned on me, like, he knows what's in my mind. He knows what's in my heart anyway. What's the point of lying about it? He's my maker. He knows me better than I know me. So might as well just be honest about it, because getting it out to him, paved the way for him to start healing my heart. And most certainly one of the things the Holy Spirit was leading me to do was to get back in my Bible and really study it and start honing in on these issues that apparently I still have. Something got triggered, and I'm still working through why, understanding, it's kind of like a perfect storm of events going on. So it's understandable in one way, but it really, inspired me to just work even more diligently to start to get to the root of some of my issues, my fears, my anxieties, my insecurities, so that I'm better equipped for the next attack. Because all those negative forces just kind of like lay in wait for you to have a moment of weakness, and that's when you get barraged with them. So that's it, guys. That is an authentic admission of a meltdown yours truly had last week. But I do like to end things on a positive note. While I can't say my ear is completely healed, and please keep it in prayer, it is much improved. And then this past Friday, I heard that I did get that job I've been interviewing for. And I am so excited about it. It is exactly what my little creative soul needed to just feel reinvigorated and to be filled with a new sense of hope for my future, for sure. Thank you for always being so encouraging here in your comments, and for all the prayers. Like I said, we'll take as many as we can get. But in any event, thank you guys so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you're having a good one, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.